Hello Everest class. It's a really cold and rainy day, the perfect time to sit and read a story. So I thought I'd actually share one with you. And the story I'm going to read to you is called The Watertower, and it's set in Australia in a place called Preston, which is near Melbourne. It's written by a brilliant author called Gary Crew. And the illustrations are by someone called Stephen Woolner, and I hope you really like the illustrations. You'll have to let me know. So we have a water tower in Rothwell. What actually goes on at a water tower? Do you think our water tower in Rothwell is mysterious? Anyway, I'm going to begin the story now. Enjoy. Nobody in Preston could remember when the water tower was built or who had built it, but there it stood on Shooter's Hill, its iron legs rusted, its egg-shaped tank warped and leaking, casting a long dark shadow across the valley, across Preston itself. An interesting description. I think we already know that it all is not as it seems with this water tower. The description being warped and leaking and dark shadows. Looks abandoned. One summer afternoon, Spike Trotter met Bubba D'Angelo by the service station, and together they went up to the tower for a swim. Spike led the way, as usual. "My mother says it's dangerous up there," he said, "but it's worth it, hey?" Bubba puffed on behind. His mother couldn't have cared less where he went. And you can see in the image there, looks like a regular town. Men there on their lunch break, maybe. At the summit, Spike stopped to look down on the sweltering town. "Suckers," he grinned, and headed for the tower. Last summer, a security fence had kept trespassers out, but now the metal posts were twisted and flattened and barbed wire lay coiled on the ground. "You reckon Vandal's done that?" Bubba asked, recovering his breath. But Spike was already on the top. "Hurry up," he yelled, throwing open the access hatch. "It's scorching up here." He pulled his shirt over his head, dropped his shorts and clambered down into the tank. It was dark inside. "The dark's got a sort of colour," Bubba said, squatting on the bottom rung of the ladder. "It's sort of green, like moss, like slimy dead moss." Spike didn't answer, except for the ghostly wailing he kept up for the fun of hearing the echo. He might not have been there at all. "Spike!" Bubba called. "Spikey!" Still no answer, so Bubba whistled for a while, then splashed a bit, but only up to his knees. He didn't particularly like the water. He wasn't keen on slipping down naked into its murky dark, and from time to time he glanced up at the shaft of sunlight angling in from the open hatch, imagining. So we've got two very different sorts of characters here, which is always the best way when you're writing a story. At last Bubba called, "Spikey, I'm going up now. I'm going to get dressed." He guessed that Spike was somewhere beneath him, in the water that eddied and swirled. Seems to me like this is one of these things where you think you're going to have fun and you're perhaps doing something you shouldn't, and maybe it doesn't go as you thought. However, Bubba stepped out onto the top of the tank. The wind was hot, the glare terrible. Blinking and squinting, he looked about for his towel. It had blown to the far side of the tank and hung there, caught on the head of a valve. "Maybe I should have stayed down," he muttered to himself, tippy-toeing across the burning metal. With the towel wrapped around him, he looked for his clothes. Spike's were there, wedged beneath the hatch, and he saw his shirt flapping at the top of the ladder. But where were his shorts? He turned around and around. Nothing. He dropped on his hands and knees and crept to the side of the tank, yelping with each movement as the burning surface seared. He peered over the side. Nothing. He made his way back to the hatch, calling, "Hey, are my pants down there?" "Uh-oh." "What?" came the response. He repeated the question, then waited, standing on his crumpled shirt, keeping his towel tight around him. Spike's dripping head suddenly appeared. "Nope," he spluttered. "Nothing's down there but the water." And he pulled himself free of the dark. Bubba looked at him again. "Then they've blown away. That's what happened, I bet." Spike laughed. Doesn't matter, he said, shaking himself and reaching for his clothes. You got your tail, go home in that. Bubba shook his head. No way, if my mother finds out that I've lost my pants, I'm dead. They looked at each other. They knew that this was true. Mama D'Angelo could land a wallop like nobody else in town. Oh dear, and how embarrassing to have to walk across town in your pants with no pants and a towel round you. I'll go back, Spike volunteered. I'll run the whole way. I'll sneak in through your bedroom window and get another pair. Top drawer of your dresser, right? Bubba nodded. I'll wait here. I'll get back down out of the sun. Will you be long? Spike was already on the ladder. I didn't win the cross country for nothing, did I? I'll run. His last words were lost in the wind. Oh, I don't know if I would want to be Bubba just waiting there at that abandoned water tower, but hey. Bubba climbed into the tank. I'll be all right, he muttered. I'll be all right. But when he looked, the bottom rung was a long way from the light and the water seemed darker. So he stopped halfway and waited. All about him, the tower creaked and groaned. Oh, that's the heat, he reasoned, the heat expanding the metal. There was a smell. That's the algae, all rotten and festering. The water eddied and swirled. That's the wind shifting the tower. It's old and rickety. But he was frightened, very frightened, and rung by rung, so as not to shake the ladder, not to disturb anything, he crept upwards towards the sun. When Bubba reached the top, he lifted himself out and squatted a moment, catching his breath, calming his heart. I'll get off this stupid thing, he said. I'll go and wait in the bushes. And there we can see Spike's running along. And a little picture of Bubba there coming out the top. So he did. He tightened the towel around his stomach, climbed down the outside ladder and hopped across the burning earth to the patchy shade of a grey-leaved bush. I'll be safer here, he thought, though from what exactly he could not imagine. Now this image is really interesting, and when we look at it, slightly more sinister tone to the people. And in the image in the window, you can see the water tower in the distance. The sun found him wherever he went, starting blisters on his skin. The hot wind burned his cheeks. How much longer, he wondered. When will he come? Then something moved, way up at the top of the tower. Something Bubba couldn't quite make out. Well, Spike's made it to Bubba's house and he's climbing in through the window there. There's a lady watching out of that window, watching what's going on at the tower. Spike, Bubba called. Is that you? No answer. Spike, he whispered, getting up. Spikey! Oh, I don't know about the images on those people's faces. I know they're looking at the water tower because I can see it in the reflection of the man's glasses. But why are they smiling? They don't look like the kindest of people, do they? Oh, and there's Bubba's face, and what is that we can see in Bubba's eye? Oh no, children, I've run out of time to read the end. We're so close, just a couple of pages. I'm going to have to go now, so if you want to find out what happens at the end of this story, can you just jot down in teams what you thought of the story so far and make your own predictions about what's going to happen? And then I'll be sure to share the ending with you. Okay.